Hey everyone, welcome back to another Inside Gaming review. Today we're talking about The Sinking City, a sort of Cthulhu Eldritch Terror sort of noir detective story. I'm joined by Elise, our resident mystery and frogwares expert.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lawrence.
I'm very glad.
Sherlock with tentacles.
Yes, which is not as creepy as it sounds.
No.
Or maybe more creepy in another way, whatever.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, so this is from Frogwares. They've done all the Sherlock Holmes games. But they're biting off a lot with this game. It's open world, which the Sherlock Holmes games typically are not. You just travel from node to node, kind of. And it also has a lot more combat, open world combat, with varying degrees of success there, but let's talk about the basics. So you play as Charles Reed, private eye detective, except you're getting these visions that draw you to Oakmont, which is the city in Massachusetts?
Yeah, because I think you're from Boston, right? You're a Boston boy.
Yeah, I think so.
And so, yeah, you've been called there, you've been having visions.
Mm-hmm. And you're going there to try to solve the mystery of those visions. Although this version of Oakmont is also very supernatural because it's a shithole in a good way. Like, it's decaying, there's barnacles growing on everything, half the city is flooded because it's a sinking city, which ties into some prophecy stuff. It gets a little mystical later on because of course it does. But yeah, I think that's actually one of the greatest successes of the game is the setting and the story, which it ought to be. That's kind of what these games are about. This is kind of the modern version of a point-and-click adventure game. But yeah, I actually got a lot of enjoyment out of the main character. I thought his voice acting was great. His demeanor was awesome. He's very lazy-eyed and kind of sad, like just the perfect noir detective, really. And then also a lot of the characters you run into are pretty fantastic and interesting. All of them have their own backstories. I don't know, what did you think? Actually, how much of the game did you play?
I'm only about an hour in thus far, so I really wanted to get your impressions. So going forward, I have a frame of reference because I'm also a little bit of an apologist when it comes to these type of games. Like, I am there for the story, the ambience, which this game seems to have in spades this far.
Yeah.
The fact that it's not just isolated cases like the Sherlock games, these build into a greater story and narrative, I think is really, really a cool narrative feat. I do like the protagonist. Like, when you play the Sherlock games, a cool Sherlock feels a little bit cheesy. This guy he's fine that he's not distracting. You can sort of imprint on him. And again, like you were saying, the setting, I'm so into the sinking city and the barnacle-covered buildings.
There's just like rotting fish everywhere.
It's such a cool way to do Lovecraftian mythos.
Yeah.
It's really neat.
So yeah, Lovecraftian shit is basically taking over the city. People are going insane. The economy has collapsed. And yeah, everyone's just sort of starving and barely getting by. Crime is starting to explode and stuff like that. It's really interesting.
And it's overrun by fish people and monkey people.
Yeah, so I wasn't expecting that. But
Me
yeah,
neither.
the Innsmouthers, the fish people, actually kind of play into the larger mystery of the game in ways that I won't spoil. But yeah, we can talk a little bit. So you mentioned that it is sort of one overarching mystery. That is true to a degree.
Okay.
As you play, essentially you are sort of tracking down this mystery, but you get kind of sidechained a lot because you'll go to somebody that has information you need, and to a point almost all of them are like, I'll tell you this, but you've got to solve this other thing for me first, and then they'll set you on this whole other path, and then you go to the next person in line and they're like, I'll help you, but you have to do this for me first. So you'll end up like branching off, going down this recursive chain of doing favors for people just to hit that one information beat. And sometimes those links can be a little odd.
It's like a weird information fetch quest.
Yes, yeah, that's all chained together. So again, without spoilers, there was one where I went to one person, they sent me to another person, they sent me to another person, and then once I had done all those favors and ricocheted my way back up the chain, the original person betrayed me. I just walked into an ambush, shot everybody, and then my investigation was dead. I walked out of the building and there was just an NPC standing there being like, hey you, and then they told me where to go next. So sometimes it's not super well linked together. Individual mysteries are pretty cool, but sometimes the way they stitch them together can be a little tenuous, so
So let me ask you this, because you've been playing on the hardest detective difficulty.
I've been in the
middle.
middle. Yeah, so that is a cool thing. They do let you set combat and mystery difficulty independently, which is kind of neat, but I think mine's bugged. Because the middle difficulty is supposed to take away the icons telling you which clue will lead you to the next thing, but they're still there.
Because I imagine the game feels a lot more linear if you are playing on an easy detective difficulty, as opposed to like a more open world where you really gotta search and piece together those clues.
So that's an interesting. It's kind of linear regardless. No matter what, there's typically only one place to go and one clue to follow up on. And the descriptions make it pretty easy. So yeah, let's get into the actual gameplay a little bit. Like, how do you solve these mysteries? There's a couple of like mechanics by which you either investigate or find your clues. One is just running around houses and picking things up, like turning something over until you see something that gives you a clue, talking to people. But there are a couple of like very interesting sort of Cthulhu-esque kind of mysterious things. One is like this reality rift that you can walk through, and then you see these events that you then have to place in order.
Which is a part of the Sherlock games. At least Devil's Daughter, they incorporated that.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Sometimes it can be a little arbitrary about it. One of the things that maybe they did or didn't add in this game is archive searching. There will be like a library or a newspaper, like places that have records about the city. And then at some point, if you have a dead lead, you can go and try to find information about a particular person based on some information you have. The problem is, like, the mechanic there is a little odd. So out of 4 categories, you have to match 3 of them to your clue, and then search through the records, and then you might find, like, an advertisement or a newspaper article or something.
That is in the Sherlock games as well,
okay.
but you're searching Sherlock's personal archives. In his encyclopedias. So it is similar where you're like, okay, well, I've had these conversations with NPCs and they've given me these little bits of information, so I know the keywords to look through these archives with. And I did get to one of the first one at the police, I think it's the police station, that they have you, or pardon me, the newspaper.
Yeah, you have to find the advertisement.
And it was like a little bit tricky at first because I wasn't sure exactly what I was looking for, but eventually got it.
Yeah, that doesn't stop. And in fact, it gets a little bit worse. Honestly, the archive searching was probably the weakest part for me in terms of the actual mystery and clues. I have a specific example that I think, make generic enough so that it doesn't spoil anything. But so I found a clue where there was like something, like it was clear that somebody had been bashed in the head. So I was like, okay, this person has gone to the hospital. So I went to the hospital to find them thinking, oh, well, if this person's injured, they're probably seeking medical care. So I actually looked around the hospital first to find this NPC and talk to them, and they weren't there. So I had to go to the archives and then I was trying to avoid looking in the archives, but I eventually did. So out of the 4, I could match 2 of them pretty easily. The fact that somebody was like, they had surgery and that it happened in this particular district, except that was wrong. Turns out I had to match the time that it happened instead of the place that it happened, which was actually the more reliable information that I had. So typically the way these things work is that I'll have to start with the most reliable things and then just kind of guess from there. It's not the best, and it doesn't make you feel like a cool detective to just be iterating through menus until something clicks. To make it worse is that once I had the clue, then the NPC spawned in. So I actually kind of leapfrogged it, but it wouldn't work until I did the stupid minigame, so
I had a moment with that at the first bar where I couldn't speak to the bartender until I had gotten a clue or spoken to someone else. And it's like, I understand that the game needs to give you that trail of breadcrumbs, but to have a different and alternate dialogue with the bartender that says, like, I won't talk to you unless you can give me proof. Like, that would have been a cool way to circumvent that, instead of just, he's not going to talk to me until I pick up this piece of evidence.
And in a way that kind of plays into the actual linear nature of the game. There are some times where you have to make really cool story decisions. Often the trick they pull is that there will be some group doing very humanitarian work in the city, be giving out free food or free medicine. And then the twist is it turns out they're actually being mind controlled by an eldritch terror from beyond. And they're actually like recruiting for their weird cult. So then you have to decide, like, well, do I like put a crime boss in charge who's actually going to terrorize people, or leave these people giving out food even though they're being controlled by some hideous monster that I don't understand? That's kind of neat, I guess. I like that it asks you hard questions, but the follow through is typically those things are erased from the game, and then you get a little newspaper clipping telling you what happened. So, it's...
So not major ethical questions that then impact your path going forward.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of like gameplay follow through. It's usually just, and I did get that moment of like, oh, there's no good answer here, and then picking something that felt right to me. I like that feeling, but the follow through in the game was a little weak, but that's okay. I did kind of end up just kind of feeling like I was watching a pretty good TV show, and that it is pretty linear.
Yeah.
But the writing is pretty good, and the voice acting's really good, so I'm just kind of rolling along with it. And to help out with that, I never really got stuck in any investigations due to kind of their linear nature, so just kind of rolling through. It's easy breezy.
Yeah, and I'm sure for anyone else playing it, the fact that you can adjust difficulty, investigation difficulty, and combat throughout makes it pretty impossible to get stuck.
Yeah.
Really.
If you turn the investigation difficulty all the way down, it'll put little icons over the clues that you need to follow up on. And aside from that, the only place you'll probably get stuck is the archive stuff, where you just have to sort of brute force trying to figure out what it wants you to guess.
What did you think of the combat in the game?
It's nostalgic, I'll say that. It feels like Silent Hill, which is to say it's janky and doesn't really add anything to the game. There are some things I really appreciate about that layer of the game and some things I really don't. You have a sanity meter, which when you're around, when you either see something really messed up or you're around enemies, it drains, and then when it keeps going down, you'll imagine monsters that then also can do damage to you, so that's kind of interesting. Some other weird effects can happen. You'll see hallucinations. One time I was even like, I had a gun out and I hit the button to like aim, and instead he put it to his own head. I was like, that's cool.
That's really cool.
It only happened like once. It reminds me of Eternal Darkness, a game from a million years ago that had some effects like that.
I kind of went into this game thinking that any combat would sort of be comparable to like Walking Dead.
Yeah, this is different. This is actually like open world combat. So a lot of the times you'll have quests that are like, there's rats in the basement, except instead of rats, it's what they call wild beasts, which are these hideous Cthulhu-esque flesh monsters that have vaginas all over them. Pretty par for the course.
Scary.
Yeah, right? Oh, terrifying. And then there are also sections of the city that are infested areas, and they just have monsters roaming around them. Sometimes your investigations, usually side quests, will send you to an abandoned house that's in an infested area. There's kind of a stealth mechanic where if you crouch, they don't see you, but it doesn't work that well. And the big thing is once a monster's on you, you can't break it off. Oh. So they try to do this thing where like bullets are really restricted, so you have to be very careful about when you do and don't enter combat. I just found that if I looted everything, I had enough materials to craft all the bullets I needed and just shoot everything. On top of that, there is one giant enemy that I have not been able to kill at all. The combat, I don't think adds to the game much. I appreciate that they're experimenting.
Yeah, that's how it feels to me. It's giving a different option in a way to play and broadening what their story can do, because obviously in a game with monsters and Lovecraftian mythos, you'd expect there to be some kind of back and forth fighting combat with these monsters, and so it feels like a necessary evil to me. But I guess for me, having the Sherlock background, I went in with no pretenses that this would be Dark Souls level of combat, or I just thought it would be sort of like secondary to the story and the investigation.
It basically is.
Me personally, I think it's whatever you're looking to get out of this game. And combat is not something I'm looking to get out of it. But to say that you're not getting like MLG levels of combat in it is not something that I think is totally valid.
What I worry is that the combat may push people away.
Could it have been a game without combat?
I don't think that would make it better. I don't think it would make it worse either. Nah, I could take it or leave it. For me, and I don't expect this to work for a lot of people, honestly, I like the combat because it is so clunky and weird. It does remind me of playing a PlayStation 1 survival horror game. I will say that like playing on mouse and keyboard makes that fundamentally easier.
Was it buggy for you in any other ways?
Yeah, but mostly in like weird, charming ways, because there are flooded sections of the town that separate sort of the areas. You have to get on this boat, and then sometimes the boat would just like tip and then flop and dump me out into the water.
Oh, really? I have used the boats a little bit, but didn't have that issue.
It only happened like an hour 10, so... But it's not so bad. You just get back in the boat and your guy warps back into it and you're on your way again. So it's like, that's funny. There are some other cool like setting hooks. One is that there's no currency in the city anymore because things are so bad. People only trade in food and supplies and bullets, which is kind of neat because it removes the need for a vendor. If you do a quest, they reward you with bullets, which is what you need.
I definitely let someone bribe me with bullets.
Nice.
At the beginning.
But yeah, let's go on to some other aspects of the game here. The visuals, I actually thought were really good. I am impressed with like the amount of visual fidelity, sort of these, and I apologize, but like mid-tier games can kind of, at least it's a God of War.
No.
But I thought the city looked great, which is to say it looks like crap. Everything looks so horrible. And it's awesome. Like even the main character, he's got like bags under his eyes and his eyes are bloodshot because he's not sleeping.
Yeah, it's definitely a game where, though the graphics are really impressive, its stylism makes up for any lack of fidelity, which I'm always looking for personally.
Yeah. As the game goes on, I'm getting closer and closer to seeing like these horrific eldritch monsters and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to see what the game has to show in that regard. I guess I would have liked some more like insane effects. I've kind of seen everything there is to see there, I think. So now when all these spooky things start happening, I'm just like, yeah, whatever.
They haven't lived in the same engine. Like Telltale just kind of had their engine and then lived in it for 10 years. I will say that they at least seem to be progressing in terms of their models and stuff. I
think the visuals are super great in regards to the game, and especially like all the visuals support all the best features of the game, which is the story, you know, the characters and things like that. In regards to the sound, I thought the voice acting was super good. Again, it hopefully is.
Yeah,
so.
I think that's what the game sort of lives and dies on, that being good.
Absolutely. So yeah, high marks there. I felt like the music, it's very subdued, which I guess is probably good. I don't want like new metal blaring at me while I'm having a moody investigation, but I guess I was hoping for something a little more intense because there are moments of intensity in the game, and I would hope that would be matched with maybe like this manic paranoid soundtrack. It wasn't really there. It was just kind of still moody, like oohs and ahs and strings and things like that. So
How did you feel about the way it just controls?
Well, I guess a mouse keyboard makes it a lot easier to shoot things. That makes getting through the combat less of an annoyance. Aside from that, it felt fine to me. One thing that I really liked is you can pin individual pieces of evidence to the map to follow different leads. That ends up not meaning so much since most of the cases are pretty linear.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah,
I like that too because I was like, oh, I can just pin this clue of where I found this body, and it's not something the game is asking me to do. It's just my own agency to like kind of keep track of my clues and build my investigation board.
One thing I did like though, and I want to shout the developers out for this because this could be a thing that would be easily forgotten, is that you have multiple quests and you can pin things per quest. If you switch off that quest and then come back to it later, your pins are still there.
Oh, that's rad.
Good on you, Frogware. Someone out there was looking out and I appreciate it. So yeah, I guess to sum it up, I think this game hits all the notes it really needs to hit. I'm into it. I'm gonna keep playing it. There are some games that kind of build and build the more you play, like you get more and more involved in them. I don't think this is that kind of game. This is more like, I'm on episode 5 of a 12-season run in Netflix and I just kind of want to finish the season. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm enjoying it. I think I'm getting my time's worth for sure out of it.
Do you think it does Lovecraft fans service?
That's hard to say. I'm honestly not a Lovecraft scholar by any stretch. But I will say that like it's got a vibe that not a lot of other games have, and I think it nails that vibe really well. So yeah, I think just by virtue of the fact like Call of Cthulhu wasn't reviewed super well. So I think for the fans that are starved for that flavor, this is going to be the best shot they have because it does nail the ambiance, the storytelling, the characters. Combat, a bit of a bummer there. Some of the investigation stuff I could have done with it being a little more complicated, but I think trading off the like risk of getting stuck in a case versus just going with a pretty linear direct path, I'm honestly kind of okay with it being linear because I want to watch it like a TV show at this point, and if I got stuck on a dumb clue that didn't make any sense,
you might stop playing.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it did everything right. It made a lot of smart decisions. I could have used a little more work. It's hard to say work on the combat because I don't even know how you fix that sort of thing, but I think it came out ahead in the end. Are you excited to keep playing it?
I am. Though I'm already kind of their built-in audience, I would say.
That's fine.
Does it make you want to go back and play a Sherlock game?
You can
be honest.
A little bit. The thing is, like, I really like how fantastic this game is. I don't know if there are supernatural elements in the Sherlock games or if it's pretty cut and dry.
I guess you'll have to play to find out, Detective Lawrence.
I've got it. I'm a detective now. Thank you guys for watching this review. Let us know what you think about Sinking City, and we'll catch you next time on Instant Gaming. Bye, everybody.
Take it over Friday.
That's right, it's Friday. Yes! I tried to imitate him as much as I could.
Oh.
It's kind of like a Darth Vader, yeah.
Vader says no.
We're in the middle of the Steam Summer Sale, which should be a good thing, right?
Yeah, discounted games and lots of long summer hours to play them. It's really the best time of year.
Well, there's all kinds